Joel Sherman with three things. My last full day at Met Camp for a few weeks. I'm heading across the state to the Yankees for a little bit. But yesterday, I spent a lot of time watching Bo Bichette play his new position. I spent a lot of time talking to Bo Bichette, and I spent a lot of time actually the night before talking to Alex Rodriguez, who's the most famous player who has made the transition, especially in their prime. Not the only one, but the most famous one. Did it at the exact same age, entering his age 28 season from shortstop to third base. So why don't we, Bichette was the biggest addition of the offseason, at least to the positional group. If you think Freddie Peralta was bigger because the Mets needed a top-of-the-rotation type starter, I'm with you. But to the position group, Bichette was the big deal, a guy they gave a 3-year, $126 million contract to, a guy they gave opt-outs to after each year, and I would suspect if he has a healthy, good year, and maybe even just a good year, he's going to opt out and try to get more in the marketplace. So three things today. Why don't we talk a little bit about this transition and what Alex Rodriguez thought and what Bo Bichette thought of all of this. So number one, I did find it interesting. Yesterday on the field, you should know if you've never done spring training, especially at this time of year, there's a little bit of a three-ring circus element to this all. There's pitchers out on the back mounds working on pitching. Then on a different field, there's a different group of pitchers working on fielding practice. There's hitters in the hitting cages. There's outfield drills, and then there's stuff often done on the main field where you want to use the bigger field for some stuff. Yesterday, Tuesday, it was bunt drills, and Bo Bichette told me something interesting. He said from the moment he signed his contract to be a third baseman, this was the day he was thinking about. Because he said when you're a shortstop, bunt drills are often you're just standing around. You know, you cover second base, sometimes there's a wheel play, but you're not very much involved in it. Third basemen are involved in bunt plays, obviously, and while the bunt isn't what it was in a different era, you still have to deal with it. There are teams who use it in sacrifice situations. There's players who will sneak a bunt every now and then. By the way, Juan Soto does it every now and then. I was watching him bunt yesterday, in fact. He'll sneak a bunt in every once in a while when he sees a shift and he thinks the team has fallen asleep and he thinks he could get a free 90 feet. And if you think about that third base play, it's about the no man's land, where you're crawling in, and they were working on runner on first and second, runner on second situations where what do you do? Do you go back to the bag? Is the ball bunted firmly enough that the pitcher is going to get to it towards the mound? Is it a squibbler where the catcher could get to it? Third baseman's got to make this very instantaneous decision. Do I run back to the bag? Do I continue to charge? If you continue to charge, do you have the good navigational skills to avoid the catcher and the pitcher and be able to have signals, voice, whatever, to call, hey, mine? At that point, you have the ball. What do you have time to do? Should you just try to get the easy out at first base, which is a different throw for a third baseman than a shortstop, throw the ball across your body as you're running towards home plate? Or do you pirouette and go back to third base? So I'm watching Bo Bichette do this for the first time in a Met uniform in a drill, and he said he didn't dread it, but he was, because it was new to him, he was anticipating it, and he went through this. And this is part of the next 6 weeks. It's a very sped up, advanced course on learning a new position. I will say this for Alex Rodriguez. I literally watched him do this in 2004. He was a guy who would come a couple of hours before the regular practice. I remember him. I could see it in my mind's eye. Rob Thompson, Larry Boa, Greg Nettles, him standing on a backfield at what is now Steinbrenner Field in Tampa. Alex never wanted to be embarrassed on the field doing something, and he learned to do it. And, my suspicion is Bo Bichette will put in the work. The thing to remember is Alex Rodriguez went from a great fielding shortstop, arguably better than Jeter, and I'm not sure there's much of an argument there, to third base. So he was coming with real defensive chops. Bichette is not known as a strong defender at shortstop. and he's moving over to third base, which brings us to number 2. A-Rod said this, and Bichette agreed with him, that moving because the guy who's there is a great player makes this easier. In his case, Jeter played shortstop. It was understood. He was a 4-time champion. He was the captain of the team. He wasn't going to move for Alex Rodriguez. If Alex Rodriguez was arguably at that moment on trajectory to be the greatest shortstop of all time or not. The Yankees weren't going to disrespect Derek Jeter, so it was understood. And A-Rod said, you don't want to move for a utility player. You want to make sure you're moving for a good reason, and he's moving for a good reason. Same is true here with Francisco Lindor, who's kind of on a Hall of Fame arc as well. Maybe not as quite as obvious as Jeter's was, but I think if this is where he continues, he ends up in Cooperstown. And Bichette said, yeah, it's easier to do it. You're doing it for a star. But I thought Bichette also said something interesting about the move that I think says something maybe about him. He said, all the ego about playing shortstop went out the window when I played second base in the World Series. And I think it's a big deal that he played second base in the World Series, and here's why. He hurt his knee last year. He sprained his knee and missed from the beginning of September to the World Series. He didn't play the field. So it was about 7.5 weeks he didn't play. And then he was sent out to play second base because he wasn't going to have the range to play short. And Andres Jimenez was playing the hell out of shortstop last postseason, if you remember, the former Met. So they put him at second. And like third base, he had never played an inning there in the minors or the majors. And he really acquitted himself well at the new position on a bad leg under the biggest pressure. So his adaptability to do that at that time should be encouraging about making this move. Again, it's tough move with all the things you have to go through to play third base. But I think the fact he did it and the fact he talked about, I left my ego at the door when I did that, so this is easier. And of course, let's not ignore the money. The money was there from teams like the Phillies, who had Trey Turner, so he was going to play third base or second base for them, or the Mets. So he needed to get off of the position probably to get the money. But I think that he's come to peace with it is probably helpful, which brings us to number 3. A-Rod talked about literally a mantra he had, which was over and over and over again to say, I'm a third baseman. I'm a third baseman. From the earliest memories of his life as a little leaguer, etc., he had always played shortstop. He had never played any place else on the diamond. He was always the best player. He was always the shortstop. And he said it took some mental gymnastics to keep convincing myself I'm a third baseman. Bichette said he thinks he's there already, but the plays are different. I mean, I'll give you some. A-Rod talked about, when you're the shortstop, he said, you're the alpha, you're the quarterback, you're in the middle of the diamond. And he said, you see the catcher's signs. You have time to react. You see the ball out of the pitcher's hand. If you're good at it, you could read the beginning of a bat swing. At third base, you kind of see it come out of the pitcher's hand, peripheral vision, but you have to be locked in on the hitter. There's no time to really read a swing. The ball is on you. I thought one of the things A-Rod said that was interesting, and Bichette kind of shook his head and said, that's interesting when I brought it to him. A-Rod said, there's probably 5 errors or so cooked into playing shortstop on certain kind of plays. He said that number doubles to about 8 to 10 at third base, especially on that do-or-die play. He said you're constantly, over the course of the season, facing that, do I back up on a ball or charge it? You got to know the speed of the runner, if you could back up on the grass, the strength of your arm, if you could get it there. And he said on most of those, you have to come, and it's a one-hopper, and you got to make a scoop and do a do-or-die play. And he said, there's going to be 8 to 10 errors cooked in because either the ball sticks or the ball doesn't. And he said that's part of it. And relays are different, and just the entire view. Alex was not a guy who loved pop-ups, but remember, at shortstop, you're protected on pop-ups a little. You got a second baseman, you got a third baseman, you got a left fielder coming in, you got a center fielder coming in. He said third base, it's a pop-up. There's no one really there, especially if you got to go in foul territory. And he said, as opposed to a middle of the diamond one, the ball kind of fades towards the crowd when you do it. So there's a lot of changes there. Ultimately, the Yankees wanted Alex Rodriguez for a ton of reasons, but notably because he had one of the best bats in the world. So they were like, we'll figure out, get you to play third base. And A-Rod put in the work and became a really superb third baseman. Bo Bichette is here to hit third. He's here to hit behind Lindor and Soto. He's here to hit 300. He's here to hit 40 doubles, maybe 20 homers, be a tough out, a guy who doesn't strike out. But to do that, he has to at least play third base competently at a time where David Stearns has talked a lot about run prevention and the reality that Brett Beatty played well at the position, especially in the second half last year. So the education of Brett Beatty continues. The classroom is fully open, and it will be a fascinating story to follow all of spring training.